call the roll, please?
Mr. Basil, present. Mrs. Bites?
Present.
Mr. Doty?
Present.
Mrs. Dungan?
Present.
Mr. Kurtz?
Here.
Mr. Rathje?
Here.
Mr. Speed?
Present.
Mr. Radowski? Mr. Martino?
Here. Under announcements, I would like to announce we are having an executive session after this meeting to discuss some personnel issues. Are there any other agenda edits?
Mr. Martino, I submitted some to Mrs. Kramer regarding what happened at Curriculum Instruction Committee and the recommendations that we made. Do you have those?
No, there's a curriculum instruction report.
Sure, we can discuss it there.
Any other agenda edits? Any public comment on the agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martino. First of all, I'd like to report out on the 2013 United Way campaign. I'm pleased to announce that we raised $13,351 as the Daniel Boone Area School District contribution to the 2013 campaign. Included in that amount was money earned from the fundraiser for our dress down days, our blue jean days. We had 5 of those, and we're able to raise $2,697 towards the United Way campaign. In addition, there were 79 staff members who participated and pledged an amount of $10,654. So this is quite an achievement, and I'm very proud to report this out this evening. Item B, under Superintendent's Report, an update on the superintendent and administrative vacancies. First of all, I'd like to thank those individuals who completed the online survey for Ray and Associates on the qualities that you're looking for in the superintendent. We had 625 people participate in that online survey, which was amazing. And of those 625 people, 331 people indicated that they were parents. So that's an amazing number of participants in this survey, and I'd like to thank all of you who participated in that. The information on the survey, the top 10 or top 12 qualities, will be released very shortly by Ray and Associates on who we're looking for and those characteristics that we are looking for in a superintendent. So the process continues. Application process is still open, and hopefully by the beginning of April, we'll be closing that application process, and this board will have an opportunity in April to begin to sift through the applications that have been submitted. And that will all be done through Ray and Associates. In addition, we're interviewing for the business manager position. That's a process that is in progress and has not yet been completed, but we hope to have a name for the board at the March 24th meeting, hopefully. The assistant business manager's position is vacant, and the position has been posted and advertised, and we are actively receiving applications for that position. And we have the position of Director of Education Technology that is open. So we are doing our best to bring closure to the vacancies. Hopefully we will have, within the next 2 months, everything wrapped up. And that's item B on the agenda. Item C deals with the Pennsylvania School Board Association conferences. On March 1st and 2nd, which was a Saturday and Sunday, 6 new school directors that are seated around the table accompanied me to the PSBA conference. It's a 2-day workshop at the Pennsylvania School Board Association headquarters in Mechanicsburg on it's basically how to be a new school director. And they sat through 4 different in-services in over a 2-day period, going over their roles and responsibilities of being a school director. And it was very, very well presented, and I know that they acquired a great deal of information in those 2 days, and we're going to test you on that as we go forward with our board meetings. But I think you'll find a much more informed board, and hopefully they're feeling more comfortable in their role as a new school director. So I want to thank you very much for putting forth your time to go to that worthwhile conference. The other 3 directors who are holdovers from previous elections have attended that workshop in the past, and it's extremely worthwhile. On Saturday, March 22nd, our board president, Rich Martino, will be accompanying me to a PSBA workshop, 1-day workshop on being a board president, and some of the things he needs to know to be an effective board president. Not that he hasn't done a good job since taking over in December, but there's always new things to know. And being a board president has a lot of responsibility that comes with it. And this workshop that's being conducted by the school director's own organization, Pennsylvania School Board Association, that is their organization, will give him some tips on running effective meetings. And Mr. Martino, the only tip I'm hoping, what we all are hoping that you pick up is short meetings. Sure. So that's my report for the evening. Item D will be our Blazer Foundation update, and I'm going to ask Stephanie Conlon to come up and give us our monthly update. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Dr. Sanger. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Blazer Foundation, I just wanted to give the public a little summary. The Blazer Foundation is a nonprofit 501c3 organization created and administered by independent volunteers in the Jackson area school district community. The foundation obtains funding from donations from businesses, individuals, and fundraising to provide enhancements and enrichments to student programs that may not be supported by the school district's budget. We were formed in the fall of 2012, and we're still in our early stages of development. We are actively seeking volunteers and board members who are interested in making a difference to the students of Danville. The last time I was here, I talked about the Educational Improvement Tax Credit Program. Regarding that program, I had the pleasure of meeting with the 5 building principals this past week to discuss with them the possible new programs that we can submit to the state in our renewal application that will be due on May 1st. And I came away with a lot of great possibilities that I'll be fine-tuning in the next couple of weeks, and we will submit that with our renewal application. Mrs. Torsha and I are also working together to get an EITC explanation letter out to parents in the school district in the most cost-effective way. So we are working on that. One of the activities that we attended last month was the Danville High School Parents Science Night on February 19th, and there the Blazer Foundation was offering a buy-a-brick program for the outdoor courtyard and greenhouse that the high school is looking to implement. We're offering engraved bricks that range from $80 to $150. You can put individual names on, your student name, family name, a quote, and that will be in the courtyard. The deadline to order is April 30th, and people that are interested can order on our website, which is blazerfoundation.org. The Blazer Foundation is currently close to offering our spring fundraiser. It's going to be an online sprinkling auction with the blessing of the building principals and the school district administration. we're offering various items that you can bid on online. The most exciting ones, I think, are the school experiences, which example is like principal for a day, a reserved parking spot for the year at each building, and various front row seats that are reserved for some of our popular events like fifth grade recognition, graduations, and concerts, or chorus concerts, those types of things. In addition, we will have various admission tickets for amusement parks and sporting events, museums, and we will also have some high-end trips as well, including overnight trips to New York City, Boston, Washington, D.C., and there will also be one offered to a wine tour in California, Golden Fairground. We're trying to spread the word about this great opportunity to support the students of Daniel Boone, and the online auction will run from April 1st to May 15th. The exciting news that I have to share is back in the fall, we had two very dedicated parents, and they wrote a letter of intent to the Blazer Foundation for a grant through the Pottstown Health and Wellness Foundation for a middle school student program for a greenhouse. It is called Greenhouse to Table Better Nutrition Program, and the letter of intent was turned in at the end of January. We received word on Friday that the Pottstown Health and Wellness was very interested in this program, and they invited us to submit a full grant application. That grant application is due on March 26th, and 46 weeks after that, we should find out if we've received the grant for the greenhouse. Any questions?
Excellent. That's quite an initiative, and
Very exciting.
yes, if that goes through, that many kids will be very interested in that project.
We're really thrilled even to make it past the letter of intent, because not everyone obviously got invited to fill out the full application, so we do look at that as a victory as well. But our fingers are crossed, we'll be able to bring that to the students.
Thank you. We wish you much success with that.
Thank you.
Any other board questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, is it?
I was just going to say thank you, Stephanie. Every time you come up to the podium, I laud your praises, and you've really done a lot with the foundation, and I think it's fabulous that we get to sit up here once a month and hear about a new initiative that you're bringing to the table and additional dollars that are coming to help the kids in the school district. So anything we can do, again, just let us know how we can help facilitate things like this online auction. Have the booster organizations been involved in any of this stuff, or in their networks and trying to help promote this online auction?
I am getting the word out to them, and the foundation is meeting with sports boosters, music boosters, and PTC on March 20th, and we're going to explain that in person and offer them as well to join in the auction. We try to be as inclusive as possible, and it would be great if we could collaborate and offer district-wide fundraising activities where everybody could get behind and be involved and benefit financially from that.
Now, do you guys have the alumni database that we had sort of put together? You guys do have that?
I do have that.
Oh, okay, good. Are you guys going to try to utilize it to, I don't know, get information out to these folks? Because maybe somebody, I don't know, in a different state who graduated would want to get online and just buy something.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we are working on a couple of things. Hopefully I can share with you the next update that we're targeting specifically at the alumni and how we're going to reach them.
Thanks.
Thank you for your support.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Thank you, Mrs.
Keep
Conlon.
up the good work. Thank you.
Are there any public comments on any of the superintendent's report? Seeing none, before we move on, I'm reluctant to say immediately following this meeting there will be a special voting meeting. Next on the agenda is curriculum instruction. Mr. Curtis.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Martino. We had a meeting starting at 6 p.m. just before this meeting in the middle school library. We covered a lot. We discussed a proposal in Pottstown that changed the way their honors and AP lists are structured. We discussed a plan to optimize the study halls at the high school, which may include SAT prep, PSAT prep, students from other areas, and we want to try to fix that by adjusting the grading scale, and that will be on the voting meeting in the form of a motion, which will read as follows. Motion to set the DBASD grading scale as follows, effective at the start of the 2014-2015 school year. A, 90 to 100, B, 80 to 90, C, 70 to 80, D, 60 to 70, and F would be below 60. This was unanimously recommended by the administration and unanimously recommended by the Curriculum Instruction Committee. To me, there really doesn't seem to be a downside. You're putting Arab students on equal footing with the students from neighboring districts. So if there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to take them. Another item, another recommendation we're bringing forward is a motion to opt out or to not participate in any non-mandated state surveys or evaluations or examinations. We have enough coming from the state that is mandated. So the question is, why would we spend time for educating on filling out more paperwork with the state? And the motion will read, motion to direct the administration to not participate in any non-mandated state surveys, examinations, or evaluations without board approval. That is how that reads. This was brought about, there was some concern over the survey that was given to students called the PAE survey, is that correct? And we never had to do it, but we dedicated time to it, and that time, the opinion of the committee should be spent educating and not filling out the paperwork with the state. So those are the two recommendations we're bringing forward for the end of the month to vote upon. We discussed a few other things in the Curriculum Instruction Committee. We're reviewing the graduation credits for the high school, and we discussed tentatively, not tentatively, there was an idea brought up from the administration last month to consider moving 5th grade to DBMS. That will not be happening. Again, that will not be happening. That is unfeasible at this point. Additionally, there was a proposal to offer physical education credit for athletics and band. Unfortunately, Pennsylvania Department of Education will not allow that, and that has been a topic that has come up every year as to whether or not it would be allowed. We finally got some clear guidance from Pennsylvania Department of Education, and it is not allowed. But we did cover that. We covered a lot in our 60-minute meeting, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
I had a question. So as it relates to this grading scale, are we going to make it retroactive?
We discussed that, and the recommendation from the administration and the committee in that way was that it would not be feasible to do that because you already have students who apply to college, and they would have to send updates as well. It just wasn't feasible at this point. If the administration would like to chime in on that, need more information, I think they would be better able to answer.
Well, I guess what I was wondering, I understand the start date of 2014-15, but if I'm a junior this year, and I'm applying to college, they're going to look at not only my senior, but primarily my junior year scores. So wouldn't we want to make sure that if the juniors or the sophomores, at least the grades, are retroactively adjusted so that when they are applying to college in the fall of next year, that their transcripts reflect that?
My understanding of the transcript is that you have numerical grades of the transcript, and then there's a box down in the corner that says A is from currently 92 to 100, B, I believe, is from 83 to 91. The change that would happen is that box would read, and A is from 90 to 100. So that's the only way the colleges would even know. Does that satisfy?
Yeah, I guess so. I just want to make sure that, I applaud the idea that we're adjusting it. I just want to make sure that the kids aren't, that it's applied to their junior year so that when they are applying to college, that they are weighted equally.
Yeah, if you have a 91, at least in what the committee recommended, if you had a 91 junior year and a 90 senior year, those would still both be A's when colleges are receiving grades. That's my understanding.
But you're having a different conversation. The question is, will it be retroactive at the beginning of this year? And the committee had said no, so are you changing it?
No, we are
changing it starting for next year. The juniors next year would be seniors next year. They'll be the ones that are changing. Our seniors have already made applications to college. Their transcripts have already gone.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, so we're going to start fresh in the fall.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it went retroactive through the transcript of an individual student,
yes.
That's all.
You won't have on the transcript grading scale 1 and grading scale 2.
Yeah.
It'll be the grading scale, and that will be 90 to 100.
Got it. Thank you.
One other thing, and I should have mentioned this in the committee meeting, but your 10-point scale, it would not be 80 to 90, it would be 80 to 89.
That's
70 to 79, 60 to 69.
Yeah, my apologies.
No, we should have caught it back there. Any other board comments or questions? Any public comment or questions regarding the curriculum instruction report? Seeing none, building and grounds, I understand Mr. Smith is still out. Mrs. Torsch, are you giving that report?
What would you like me to report?
I have no idea.
I think there's
have that.
between.
You have that?
I'd like you to update us, Mrs. Torsha, on a BEC and the boilers, and then Mr. Doty, if you could cover the meeting that was held, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
As of Friday morning, Birdsboro Elementary Center had a rental boiler delivered to the building and was in process of being hooked up into our loop system of our two pipe system, and welding was taking place that could be accomplished Friday. Saturday morning, another welder came in to, I don't know the technical words, I'm sorry, to complete the welding process that the welder before wasn't qualified to do. So as of Saturday evening, heat was flowing through Birdsboro Elementary Center and was up and running today for a regular day of school. How's that?
And that's a temporary boiler that we've rented.
It is. It's a temporary boiler. It's a rental boiler. So you can rent anything these days. It comes in the back of a huge tractor trailer, and they do all of the same setup to take it into our system that a boiler that's sitting in the basement would do.
Okay, and the cost for that per month?
The cost of that was $5,500.
Right, and
Is.
Okay. And that's monthly, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any board comments or questions from Mrs. Torsia?
Yeah, I've got a question. At previous meetings, there was been discussion of the emergency plan.
Correct.
Why was that not enacted?
Because the state came in and told us that we couldn't run either boiler, and in order for me to have moved students to Amity Primary Center, I would have had to have teacher supplies, student supplies, classroom set up. There wasn't enough time to make the transition in 24 hours for one day when we knew that we would be up and running by Monday.
Okay, I can see that.
And
I can appreciate that.
in reality, we had to have heat coming into the building. So if we wouldn't have put the rental boiler in place, the building would have been cold and potentially lines could have frozen. I don't know what could have happened.
But if we have an emergency plan,
We do. And that would, and
Right. If the students were going to be out of that building for any length of time, then we would have taken the last 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and done whatever we needed to do to make sure that the students would have been able to attend school on Monday at Amity, which would have included, busing. And again, we would have needed to get all of the, you can't just...
yeah, I understand the logistics. It's a massive job.
Yeah.
My question is, if there is an emergency plan, and I understand that there is.
there is.
Okay. Aren't these other considerations as far as the logistics taken into account?
They are.
When we knew that we were on a short leash before?
We knew that, we found out on Thursday afternoon that we had heat for the rest of the day, but we were going to be shut down. We knew that we could be operational with only a one-day shutdown because it was a Friday in the weekend.
Okay.
We knew that losing one student day, we could accommodate one student day's loss without a lot of expense and activity and effort on a lot of people's part to relocate those kids when we could be up and running by Monday morning, which we are. So I think that we didn't compromise safety on anyone's part for our student or staff. We were down one day, technically, one school day, and we were back in operation on Monday. So I didn't think that the emergency plan had to be invoked. If we were going to, as a board, vote on replacing those boilers on a permanent basis, then we say, okay, get the boilers in and let's put them in right away. And let's suppose it would take a month to put those in, and we knew ahead of time we were going to be out for a month at a time, we would put the emergency plan in place. We could relocate kids.
Okay, so that is the scenario for the emergency.
Correct. Not something just temporary.
Didn't we take that option off the table then? By not committing to doing that now?
Well,
where did the plan come from for the temporary boilers? Because this is the first we've heard of it.
We had to act quickly because we can't let that building without heat, regardless of whether we're in there or not in there. Mr. Smith has explained to us several times that we have to keep heat in that building. So the quick fix right now, the Band-Aid, is the rental boiler. Now, if the board doesn't choose to continue with this and says to us that we're only going to rent this for a month or 2 months, at that point, we'll stop and put the emergency plan in place and move the kids over to AEC. But at this point, we are continuing as business as usual because this board has not made a decision on replacement of boilers. And $5,500 a month, we would have had that much in expenses in relocating all those students and teachers to AEC.
And where did that come from? Is it like a total rental thing?
I don't know. Where did we find a temporary boiler? I don't know that.
Was that even, were you even aware that there was a temporary boiler before you had the emergency plan?
Yes.
You were, okay.
Yes. I personally was not aware, but when I was conversing with Mr. Smith, he said, don't tell me I'm going to have to work on getting a rental boiler. So yes, he always knew that a rental boiler was an option. His goal was to try to get those boilers through to warmer weather. Once warmer weather's here, we don't need those boilers to be able to have students in the building. The hot water is...
Perhaps the temporary rental boiler would have been a better plan to begin with. It was probably less money overall than having to move kids over.
At this point, at the point that...
I think part of the issue, though, was we weren't sure we could cut in to the system with a temporary boiler. That took a little bit of investigation. So,
how did we find that out all of a sudden?
Well, we had a lot of people there at the time that the boilers failed, and a lot of people were sharing different ideas and analyzing what the best solution might be, and it looked like we could actually get the temporary boiler in place. So.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I just have one. Is the temporary boiler operating as if we had one boiler?
Yes. I don't know the size of it, Mr. Basil. I'm not sure if you were there.
I couldn't tell you what the size of it is either.
But it is operating the whole building. It is, because it's not limping, it's not on life support like the other boiler was, it's functioning.
Well, no, I was just wondering if the one is doing, because we had discussed just doing one boiler to keep the building heated and keeping it from deteriorating.
My understanding is that if you only keep one boiler running, then it's running 24/7.
Right.
And the life expectancy of that boiler depreciates greatly. So lead and lag were the two words that I was given, and that one shuts down, the other one runs, the next one shuts down, that one runs, and that's how our two-pipe system operates.
Thank you, Mrs. George.
I'm
Mr.
impressed.
Deputy, do you want to give the rest of the committee report, please?
Yes, and in the committee, facilities committee last Monday, obviously the one topic was the boilers, and we were looking into possibly replacing one at a time. And so there was a difference of opinion there amongst the committee. So what we wanted to do was set out to get that price and see what the cost difference was between doing one on its own and doing both together. Because there's an assumption that doing two would have some economies of scale, at least for installation costs and things of that nature. So that was that discussion. The other topic of discussion was moving the administrative offices. There was a concern about costs to move, rather than moving to APC, but to move to the high school. So we asked Mrs. Torsha if she could obtain some information before the 24th, and it looks like it's here in front of me right now. And that was to get an estimate from a moving company to move the offices, the cost to paint, recarpet, and any additional month's lease if we weren't out of Matthew Brook in time. And a lot of the cost is coming from ending that lease at Matthew Brook, where we have to paint and carpet the building. And I'm just trying to, this kind of came in just recently. So the cost to have the painting done looks like roughly $6,500. The cost of replacing the carpeting is $20,000. So those are regardless. My understanding is those are regardless. Now, there was some concern about timing. That Ken and his staff, if they knew by April that they could do it on their own rather than having another company come in and do this. The problem is that they take this time period in the winter, they have some downtime, they could have been doing this, they were doing it, and when we changed our minds on the board, they went back to plowing snow and those sorts of things, and now they're trying to get ready for ball fields and other regular maintenance items to get ready for spring sports. So now we have to talk about paying these bills to have somebody come in and do these things. My understanding is we'd have to replace the carpet no matter what. I don't think we could have gotten around that one. And then there's also the cost of the moving company, which appears here $93.97 to do the move. And it looks like they were moved. I'm sorry, I'm kind of reading this.
Mr. Doty, would it be possible for you to forward that information out to everybody?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Are there any additional costs listed in there as it relates to the actual high school improvements themselves?
Yeah, there's a very significant one, but there was a recommendation from the insurance provider to add a security guard at the high school. And I imagine that's, from having people coming in and out of the building, somebody needs to check people in who are not students and staff, and that's a cost of $46,410 a year.
I have a question about that. I believe there already is a security guard at the high school doing that for visitors. Why would we need another to do the same thing?
I don't know. I mean, I'd probably direct that question to you.
Is this a discussion? I know we're keeping it on the agenda. Is this an acceptable thing to talk about?
That's what this meeting's about.
All right.
Yeah. Can you help us, Mrs. Borgia, about the high school?
Because of the location of where the administration building or offices would be, we would not be at the main entrance. And that security guard would not be able to leave his post. When I come and go through the building, the security guard is there. The insurance provider felt that a separate security guard needed to be placed, and they could have been placed outside of the suites that we would be using, which would be down by B5 or 6 door. That would be right in our area. And that way you wouldn't have to have outside people coming all the way through the building.
Part of the proposal was to have the administrators who were frequently visited up front so you wouldn't have to have that issue.
My concern is that the office of the high school students or the high school office is more frequently visited than the business office is, and that it would be, it wouldn't be the best way to spend our energies this summer in transporting all of the high school staff, moving them out of there when, if we're to move to high school.
If it could save us $46,000, does that change the equation?
Well, it's, Connor, I can't answer that question. I can only tell you what I'm asked to provide. And it would not make sense for us to move all of those people, because I guess at some point you'd have to equate what that cost of moving all of those classrooms would come out to as well.
Security question.
I think we'd have to look at that, though, because
I'm only going by what the insurance provider.
well, the insurance provider has gone by the assumption that all the people that meet the public are going to be in the interior of the building. If they were up front, like Mr. Kurtz just mentioned, that would change the equation, and the ones that may infrequently meet the public, they can be called to the front rather than having the public escorted back.
What did it cost to move them up? Because in the last 2 years, they were actually moved from the old section to the new section. So we're just talking about reversing that.
I don't know. It only makes sense to put us in the existing space that's empty, to be honest with you. I mean, it's really...
It doesn't make sense.
Excuse me?
What we're saying is that it doesn't make sense.
Well, it doesn't make dollar sense, but sensibly it would be. It would be the most practical place for us to be sitting. Because of the amount of traffic that is coming into the regular office on a regular basis, we would take that space, and there would still be people coming into the building that would need to go somewhere. So I'm not really sure where you're thinking to push the current administrative space to.
We left that up to the administration to determine where they best see it fit.
And my suggestion is, don't move the guidance suite. It's appropriate for what we're doing with students. This is about students, about where they're coming into their school. It's their school.
Absolutely, but do you have parents often visiting guidance more often than the district administration?
Absolutely.
Okay,
I would say you have more parents coming into guidance and the vice principal and principal's office than what you may have coming to us.
I know.
I can't tell you on any given day what traffic we're going to have at the business office.
And you have another security guard, and nobody's going back there anyway, then why do you need that security guard?
I put it in there because the insurance provider wrote us up with a plan stating that this is their recommendation. So I just included that in there. It's for you at the end of the day to decide whether you want it there or not. I'm just a provider of information.
I just have one question. Is there going to be a security guard if you were at BBC?
No, there would not be.
Don't you need one?
No. Because where there wouldn't be, our students wouldn't be there. We would be able to buzz the public in and out of the building.
Have you guys been able to address the issue of command and control in case there is a bomb scare or something else at the high school?
I have been contacted by Sergeant Lee of the state police, and we are on the waiting list to have a risk assessment completed.
Just one more question. How many security guards are there at the moment?
3.
So one of the 3 couldn't leave the post to escort somebody back?
I don't believe they're all sitting there at the same time, correct? No, they're not. I'm not sure what the duties of the security guards
Do they have radios where they can be contacted if somebody needs to see the superintendent? Okay.
I just think it's something that needs to be discussed more before we commit to spending $46,000.
I'm not asking you to commit. I'm reporting what the insurance company said.
Thank you.
Well, it seems to me we need to be making a decision on this quickly because we have to know where our administrative offices are ultimately going to go. And, my position on this is I still think it's a bad idea to try to shove this into the high school right now. We got too many different things going on. We don't know what the costs are. We haven't solved the command and control issue. We have to make a decision on this rather soon if we're going to save some money and have our own crew do the move. I don't understand why we're trying to shove a round peg into a square hole in such a short period of time.
Last a few meetings ago.
Well, Connor, we made that decision a few meetings ago, and before that we made a different decision, and before that the same decision. So 3 times we voted to make sure that we were putting everybody in the APC. The 4th time you guys changed it to go to the high school. So we're going to keep revisiting this thing until we come to some sort of conclusion on it. I'm trying to figure out why we're going to spend all this money and time and effort to try to shove our administrative offices up into the high school when we know it's not going to cost us any money to go into the Amity Primary
That's why
Center?
we're questioning the cost of the security guard.
Because
We
of the
don't
what?
think it will cost that much money.
The loss of the lease potential, the revenue potential on APC.
But there's no loss to
Driving
revenue
the-
potential at APC because
Well,
nobody is
we
leasing
should look.
APC.
That's because we haven't begun to look for lease options because we've always had a plan for our admins to move in there.
I hear you, but
I also had to say, I think, no one mentioned this, but I think it was quite unfair. I mean, I could be speaking wrongly for Mr. Doty and Mr. Speed, but you had them vote this issue the first night that they got appointed to the board. I don't know what information they had or didn't have on this issue, but I got to think that if I was them, I would prefer a little more time to, so that first night on the board, you're asked to make that decision.
I mean, by the time you get a lease agreement signed with a broker and you actually get out there and actually start marketing this thing, when do people realistically think you're going to lease this space up? And you're going to lease up 100% of the building?
Well, let me address that. Let me address that, Mrs. Bites. We shut the building last summer. This is this spring, and we still haven't looked into leasing the place yet. So, I mean, don't we think it's time?
I think they've talked to a couple different realtors already. Correct me if I'm wrong, you had a realtor from CBRE at the meeting the other night?
Yeah, so that was the next item that was on the list. And it kind of crosses over into that. So Paul, and you mentioned the company that he was from.
C.B. Richard Ellis.
Yeah, C.B. Richard Ellis. He spoke to the committee about potential uses for the building, and the possibilities depend on whether we would want to sell the building or lease the building. I think we were all talking about leasing, but basically the building might be usable for residential, but only if we were going to sell it. And then there are obviously pitfalls of selling it. One is we probably couldn't pay off the debt with what we would raise in income from that building. So that's kind of an issue. The other thing is that, sorry, I'm reading a huge paragraph that Tamara wrote and trying to make it more concise. And that it wouldn't pay off the debt. And then as far as leasing it, it would either have to be similar use, which is what we had going with River Rock, where they were using a portion of the building and they were going to be leasing it and paying us a sum of money. And I think we were talking in the committee about maybe backing away from that because there's another option on the table that, I don't want to get too far down that road. But there's possibility for growth within River Rock that they might be using a little bit more space, and there might be some revenue, which is the next committee meeting that we will be discussing. But there's potential there to grow this out with River Rock instead of going another route and trying to lease all the space another way. The other thing is that there's not a lot of demand for office space, which is really what that would best be used for as it stands, without doing a lot of retrofitting and a lot of work. So that was, you guys were in that meeting as well, so if you have anything to add that I'm missing here, please do so.
Well, my recollection of the meeting as it related to this gentleman's presentation was we had a discussion involved in changing the way the building was zoned. And if we did that, if we went down that road, that would open up a whole other can of worms with respect to the fact that we would have to make physical improvements on the building if the building was going to be rezoned. So that was not correct. That was not a good idea. This gentleman's opinion, my takeaway from it, it's going to be a limited use building, basically almost as is.
Yeah. So it was basically office space,
right,
or another, whether it's a charter school or some kind of alternative education type of thing, which River Rock fits the bill there.
I mean, this is the same conversation that we had last year when we were looking at, when we were talking to brokers, and they told us the same thing. It's a special use building. The cost to make the improvements to convert it to an alternative use were exceptionally high. It's not ADA compliant, which is the reason why we negotiated a lease with River Rock. It was a perfect match for that building. You maybe can find an alternative use in terms of a YMCA or a Catholic school or somebody else who wants to lease that space. It's going to use it in a similar fashion. I don't know you're going to find a commercial enterprise that wants to convert that building to offices, and who spends the money to do that? Is it us? Is it them? I mean, there's plenty of office space in our district that's still available, as well as in other areas. The Matthew Brook building is a perfect example. I also think that in terms of, it comes to debt, you can't refinance the debt. That debt is in place until 2033 is probably the first opportunity you can refinance a good portion of that debt. Or 2017 is a small piece, but the next one I think is up until like 6 months prior or a year prior to the expiration of the debt. So I think in terms of the discussion whether or not you can sell the building and then take the money and pay off the debt, the answer is no.
Right.
You can't pay off the debt.
Well, I haven't heard anyone discussing paying off the debt. And I think Mrs. White's point is that as long as that space is empty, there is always the possibility of leasing it. As far as the move to the high school, the only thing I've heard so far is the possibility of $46,000 for a security guard, which I'm not yet convinced we'd have to have.
Well, I can go back into that. So the $46,000 on the recommendation from the insurance provider to have a security guard. The cost of a moving company to move the furniture that was already moved to APC and additional furniture that's still at the Matthew Brook building, that cost is $93.97. Cost to have Matthew Brook building painted by an outside company, $6,500. And the cost of replacing the carpet in Matthew Brook is roughly $20,000. So basically, in this email that I actually just forwarded it all out to you guys, and I apologize, we just got this information right before tonight, so it's very new. But basically, the point was that the painting could be done in-house, and the carpeting could be shampooed, and that would have eliminated replacing some or even all of the carpet. Whereas if we continue on this move to the high school, then Kenny's guys have to, continue doing their thing, and that decision would need to be made soon.
That doesn't make any sense to me. If we haven't moved to either place yet.
They started moving to APC already.
No, I'm talking about the carpet. The carpet is either going to have to be cleaned or replaced, one or the other.
Right.
No matter where we go. The painting's going to have to be done no matter where we go. So the only thing I've heard that's different is the furniture that's already been moved.
I think the difference is time.
Yeah.
So if they've already moved some material into APC, they have more time available to do the painting.
How much material has been moved to APC?
I don't.
The painting cost is an addition. Kenny had a gentleman starting to paint the offices. So we were doing that during school, during his work hours. So that cost would be additional because he would not be able to have the same gentleman painting.
How much has been moved to the high school, the APC already? Because I was just in district offices, and it seemed like there's a lot still there, almost everything.
There are all of the filing cabinets from each of the offices and all of the old records from the offices below have been relocated, along with some furniture that was in desks and other furniture that was in a few of the offices. All the supplies. Looking at Mrs. Kramer because she was more aware because she did the packing. So there's stuff that's sitting in each of the classrooms over there.
Is it already mapped out who gets which classroom? How far was this planned in APC?
Well, once we were given the approval in January, yes, we laid out the first floor and how it would be.
It wasn't planned before January?
Excuse me?
Never mind.
No, it was not planned before January.
In addition, the staff from the Matthew Brook building, both Mr. Boyer's staff and Mrs. Torsh's staff, have been over. They've already know where their desks are going to go. They've already laid out where things are supposed to have been delivered. And once that was established, Kenny's guys moved the boxes and filing cabinets to those designated areas.
Considering the decision was made to move to the high school at least a month back now, what has been moved to the high school? What work has been done to the high school?
Nothing's been moved to the high school.
Not even on land.
Why was everything stopped and nothing? Why hasn't this been done?
Because we can't do anything at the high school till the kids leave.
But these areas are empty now. The areas where you want to
They are empty, but there's work that needs to be done, and actually two of the rooms, I believe that one of the rooms for a fact is a classroom that is occupied by a teacher currently. The area that is not occupied is the old guidance suite, which, that would have to be cleaned. There's things that are dumped in there that would have to be removed from that area. I can't answer a question as to why, there wasn't any more forward momentum.
Actually,
the fact that we were snow removing.
I hate to interrupt Ms. Torcher, but my recollection was when the vote was to move, the vote was also to answer a bunch of different questions that needed to be answered prior to committing to this 100%.
Correct.
Chief in my mind is the health, safety, and welfare of the kids in terms of the command and control issue. And that has yet to be even addressed. What happens when we find out that it's not the appropriate place to put kids because if there is a bomb scare or something else, you have to evacuate the population?
I thought we did discuss that, and that most of these occurrences are happening at the middle schools and elementary schools, and that the high schools are not.
We haven't addressed it because if there is a scare or an issue there, what do we do?
We have that problem.
What was voted on by the board was a very clear directive to move to the high school.
I hear you. It was a clear directive back in December and January, too.
And they did that. They began to move. However, they did not begin to move to the high school after we voted to change course.
Correct.
The difference is, Connor, is that the issue of command and control at APC is a non-issue. Okay? If there's a bomb threat at the high school, you have your administrative people at a different building to take the calls and to address the situation. If it's at the high school, you have to evacuate your entire administration.
I understand what you're saying, Mr.
Okay.
Why wasn't this conveyed to us until tonight? They had a month and a
Are
half.
at the high school. We did some research on this. So I don't even know where this is coming from.
Because I haven't heard an answer on it yet, how we're addressing it. Have we had
Speaking, most administrative offices are at the high schools. At
Talk
the high
about
school
planning.
campuses.
We haven't heard boo about that
We
here,
got
have we?
these numbers at 7:44
These are not
tonight,
issues.
and we're talking about changing business numbers we haven't had time to review, and an issue that has not been brought to our attention until tonight, even though the administration was given the directive to move a month and a half ago. I don't know.
That directive was given to the administration, and that email came to me. And I was given a date that I had to respond to you, which hasn't come yet.
That was in terms of the positions that would be evaluated, not in terms of moving. It's very clear in the resolution.
The other thing is you have to recognize that since that last meeting where the change was reversed and we were directed to go to the high school, we've been slammed 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks with snow. And Kenny Smith and his guys have worked nonstop to keep our district open when we could. So we haven't done a thing because basically we've been tied up with between snow and boilers. We haven't had time to move anything yet. It's...
Mr. Jody, didn't your report indicate that there would be some potential growth for River Rock? So shouldn't we reserve that area for them to move into?
That's very preliminary in its inception. It's really preliminary, but
Well, quite frankly, they can grow within the space that they already have.
yeah, they can.
So it's not, they can grow within the space that they already are leasing from us at APC
To how many students?
to accommodate this alternative plan. So they're leasing
What is
28.
the maximum before they would need, maximum number of placements before they would need more space from us?
They try to maintain 10 to 12 students per classroom. They have the one side of the building being utilized for the older students, and then the other side of the bill of the section that they're using. Without me having a map in front of me, you won't be sure of what I'm talking about. But they have enough space to be able to continue to grow. If they would not want to grow out of the space that they're currently in, because then they would not any longer be an alternative program. They would be a school, and that would be more than what they want, because the key part of an alternative program is being able to have the small group instruction, having that one-on-one teaching component, so that you are changing behaviors, you are getting quality learning, and that students are making progress in order to be able to go back to their schools. So they feel as though whether their elementary program grows at whatever rate, that they will be able to provide the space that they've already asked for will be fine.
So it is K-12 being moved into that?
From revenue enhancement, I had another idea to help enhance revenue in the school district. So I would like to look at the elementary program as being ours and potentially being able to bring in revenue for the students that are sitting in seats instead of it going to lease, that we would be able to have some part of that program. And I'm not doing a very good service of talking about it right now, but I'll be happy to give you my vision for that program.
Is River Rock still slated to open with 7 and students and 2 of them are placements?
They are slated to open with far more students than just 7. Our 7 students are a part of that. How many really start next year, I'm not sure, because the potential at the end of the year, or the goal at the end of the year, is to have as many students return to their home districts as possible.
He was looking at 40 students.
With the Berks County Intermediate Unit's alternative ed program shutting down, they're closing their doors at the end of June. There are 8 school districts that we're sending students there. A few of those school districts have already reached out to River Rock, one of which was Bordertown School District, who is one of our neighbors and is very excited to have a program close by.
But we max out at 7 placements, right?
We don't necessarily max out 7 placements. There's an increment of
Our lease allows for placements to grow and then revenue that corresponds with that. So
our average isn't usually beyond 7.
But they would never need more of the building then. There's never any possibility that they would need more of the building.
They don't want more of the building because then it diminishes their program.
So here's the thing. I was on the opposite side of that vote for moving to the high school, but that was the vote. So we need to make that happen. I don't agree with that, but that was the vote, and it needs to happen. So we can't.
Are we going to make it happen, or are we going to? I just want to understand, because in the context of our budget, in a year where we're squeezing for cash, are we going to go spend?
It costs more.
Are we going to go spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to move to the high school when we can spend $0 to move to APC?
We don't know how much it's going to cost to move to the high school.
Well, we know it's going to cost more than going to the APC.
Do we know that?
I think we do.
It could cost the same amount if you have to do the carpet again.
I don't believe that.
Well, we need a little bit more investigation.
I keep hearing moving to the APC will cost nothing, and that's absolutely not true.
Well, what will it cost,
We still have to
Mr.
paint.
Martino?
We still have to paint Matthew Brook, regardless of where we move. We still have to do something with the carpet, regardless of where we move. So it's going to cost something.
Right, but let's take those costs off the table, because they're costs for both options.
Okay.
Right?
So now, what are the extra costs is the question.
Exactly. But,
You have a moving company, and you have security, potentially, among other...
Well, is the moving company totally extra? Because we still have more stuff to move no matter where we go.
Yes, the moving company is totally extra, and that estimate includes moving the furniture from Matthew Brook, where the gentleman came out to assess the amount of materials that have to be moved from this building, as well as me physically taking him to Amity Primary Center and adding up all of the materials that need to be moved from there.
But if we move to Amity Primary Center, wouldn't we have to move what's left of Matthew Brook to Amity Primary Center?
We will not pay for moving. Mr. Smith will utilize his men, and they will move.
So if he could move to Amity APC, he could move to
because
the
he
high
can do
school.
it now.
But I'm saying he could. So
Right.
that's not a totally extra cost.
is there a place at the high school that you could temporarily store the items so you could move now?
Yeah.
The reason that you're saying the moving company is because we had to wait to move Matthew Brook to the high school until summertime. Is that correct? till school's out?
Correct.
So is there a place that in the high school where you could temporarily store items and then place them in some?
I'm sure there would be space that
So
somebody
we
would
could
find.
potentially avoid the moving cost. Potentially.
Potentially.
I'm saying, the vote was already done. It was a 5-4 vote.
Yeah, but the vote was done in January, it was done in December, it was done in October before that.
We're wasting hours of time going over
Yeah, but I don't want to waste.
same issue over and over again.
Don't want to interrupt, but I don't want to waste $10,000 or more that we sorely need for other stuff. And I think this whole issue of pushing this up there from a managerial standpoint, from a safety standpoint, from a dollar
I don't
standpoint,
disagree.
doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
But that was the vote.
I think there's still one piece of information that we need to get. And I want to hear from the state troopers, state police. And I think once we have that piece, we listen to what he has to say.
And what, I mean, I know we're on a waiting list, but is that a month? Is it
I don't know, and I know another organization that we could probably tap and maybe get the information more quickly. But I think we need to have that piece. But it's the beginning of March. We're supposed to have some kind of bad weather. Oh boy. All right. That's what I get for talking about bad weather. Supposed to have some kind of bad weather on Wednesday. And, I'd like to get past St. Patrick's Day here without much more.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, I think we need to talk about boilers at DEC. We need to make a decision on those.
That's on the agenda later.
Is it?
Yes. Any other discussion about the report?
There is another item on here that we discussed in the meeting, and this is a reserve study proposal that we received. It's going to cost roughly $70,000, but this is a proposal to do a study that would give us a 20-year plan as far as facilities goes as to what kind of budgeting we should do to maintain things. So we don't have the same thing that's happening at BEC right now happen 10, 20 years from now, where we don't have any money and we're making a really tough decision. So the concern was that we were going to get competing quotes. There was a quote in 2009 from Yerkes that was approximately $100,000. The quote that we received recently was $70,000. We thought it was a good idea as a committee to find a competing offer, make sure that they're in line price-wise, but we're really only going to do that if it was something that the board would be willing to, pay this money to do this study. So it's something that we should discuss as a board and carefully deliberate because, it's $70,000. It's a lot of money. But it may cover us in the future. It may provide us with the right information so that we know exactly how much to be putting in reserves every year for these kind of expenses.
My feeling is this has been talked about for quite some time. I think my feeling is it needs to be done, but I would think you would need to get a competing bid or two.
And I would want to make sure that the community had a chance to respond to that, because we have this kind of engineering resources within the community where we can get perhaps a good deal.
Okay.
Ms. Duncan?
No, I'm just waiting for the next thing.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something. Okay. That was what the committee came back with. We wanted to make sure that the board was comfortable with spending that kind of money. I mean, I look at it as an investment. I mean, I'm thinking like you. I think it's something we should be doing. To not have a plan is exactly why we're in this position we are now, in my opinion. So, I mean, if everybody, I'd like to hear somebody.
I think it needs to be done. I'm the one who recommended it in 2009. I think it needs to be done now. I think $70,000 is a small price to pay when you have $120 million worth of assets. Every property management company or landlord anywhere in the United States, for that matter globally, does these things every 3 to 5 years. So why we're not doing it in the community?
One of the questions I had, and it's just, I'm kind of thinking out loud here, but one of the questions I had was, like you said, Mr. Basil, every 3 to 5 years. They proposed the study or the proposal that we had was a 20-year study. And my understanding is they would have to go back and revisit that.
Yeah, what happens is you're projecting out costs and lifespans for the different components of your portfolio. So the accuracy of those projections 15, 20 years out is not very good, right? So you have a better idea for those items, 2, 3, 5 years out, what their lifespans are and what the cost will be. So, think of it as a moving cone. So every 3 to 5 years you need to reset and reanalyze where you are. Maybe that roof, your first time you look at it, it'll last 15 years. 5 years later, you're looking at it, we're lucky if we'll get another 9, right. Or 3 or 4. It depends on what the issue is. So they constantly need to be updated every, like I said, 3 to 5 years.
This is one of those things where you have the initial upfront, you come in, a few years later, it's kind of already set up. And
typically when they give this, particularly if it's the same company coming back and doing it, it's a lot less expensive because they've already done the study. They're just going back now and reviewing as opposed to getting all the information all over again. So it's a lot less expensive.
But I would think for $70,000 or thereabouts, that should be built into some kind of contract that they come back every couple of years for a set price.
And that was the biggest question I had was, is that in that number already, or are we not looking at a $70,000 expense, but potentially double that or even more? And
what do you mean?
Because if they come back every 3 to 5 years, what's the price tag on that?
My experience has been with these things is, and we usually do it building by building as opposed to a campus-wide type of thing, but let's say you're spending, pick a number, $15,000 to do it on one building. Then 5 years later, it might be 7.
Okay. So I think we need to get some clarity around that as to what does this look like, and if they're going to put a 20-year plan together, do they come back 3 years? Do they come back 5 years? Like Mr. Martinez suggested, is that included in the price? And then if everybody's comfortable with that, and I'm seeing a lot of head nodding that like, yeah, let's do this, then I think we can go out and get some competitive offers.
So are you giving authorization to the administration to go out and secure some quotes?
Well, I guess we could vote on that.
Because
right?
that's how it's going to have to be done.
If you're nodding heads, then I think
I don't know that we need to vote. I mean, the committee was tasked with getting prices, and I think it's the committee as opposed to Dr. Sanker saying the administration. I think the committee's doing it. Am I not correct?
Yeah, I mean, it was Mrs. Twardowski who got it originally, I believe. I'm not sure.
Well, I can certainly give you guys the names of multiple engineers both in this area, within our district, as well as without, and they'll be happy to come in and give you prices.
But it should be coordinated. If you could.
Yeah, I'll email it to Tamara and CCU, and you guys can. You have SDI locally here. You've got Bursich. You've got LTL. I don't know if LTL does that type of stuff though. And then you have Pannonia. So there's going to be lots of good.
This has to be open to bid, right? Because it's $70,000. What is the threshold for services that we have to put out to bid?
Well, there's some groups that don't need to be bid.
I don't believe this needs to be bid out.
Because consultants, architects, there's a certain group that do not fall into the bidding process.
When we were doing the stadium, yes, we went and talked to different architectural firms and things of that nature, and they gave us prices, but it was not a competitive bidding situation where you're forced to go with the lowest bid or whatever the case may be.
We can get quotes. We can get 3 quotes and bring that back.
I get 5.
5 quotes,
yeah,
sure.
Absolutely, sure.
Okay.
Talk to 5 different companies.
And any company that wants to come forward, they have to.
Clearly you want to vet them a little bit. You want to make sure this is what they do for a living. I believe Reserve Associates, that's all they do are reserve studies. That's what they specialize in. And you wouldn't want to just get Joe Schmo engineering company out here, never done
I
one
just
of
want
these
to make
things
sure that
before.
there's opportunities for other things that places we're not considering, that they have the opportunity. I'm sure we'll go with what's best,
Well,
just for the sake of transparency. And
we'll consult with Mr. Subers to make sure that we're correct in the way we're proceeding. And if there's an advertising requirement on this, we'll be as transparent as possible.
Mr. Doty, anything else?
That's all from facilities.
Oh, facility.
Yeah. Revenue Enhancement Committee.
We'll wait before we do that. Any public comment on the building or grounds report? Seeing none, we'll move on to revenue enhancement.
So Revenue Enhancement Committee, we discussed activity fees and ad ticket prices. Mrs. Torshovs is, we asked her to get some more information, see if we can get our, Michelle.
Ms. Goss.
Mrs. Goss. What's her title?
Athletic facilitator.
Athletic
Facilitator.
Sorry, I didn't make sure I got that right. We asked her to come to the next committee meeting to go over some of the information like ad revenue, ticket prices, things of that nature, so that we can get more information there. As far as advertising, we have an agreement with this marketplace.
Market Street.
Market Street. Sorry, that's in here wrong. We wanted to make sure that there was a non-compete. It looks like we're okay to terminate that agreement, unless I read that email wrong.
No, we are.
And I think we were all in agreement that evening that we could probably do a better job in-house finding ways to market and come up with other ads, things like put along the fencing and things like that. One of the ideas that came out of the public that evening was that we reach out to local colleges and utilize their marketing majors as interns to work on this. I mean, I thought that was a great idea. And they could help us with the advertising and generate some revenue from us. And I think we could actually finally do something there. It seems like the company we were working with wasn't really moving the ball forward, so do that on our own.
So is there a recommendation that we terminate the Market Street? Is that what you guys are recommending?
Yes.
Do we want to give him the affirmative nods of the head?
The only question I have is, do we need to terminate? I mean, my understanding of their contract is they only get paid if they actually do anything.
I have some information on that, actually. I contacted a business this week, and within the past 2 weeks, they told me that they were contacted by someone asking for donations from their company, and that they were rather rude and unfamiliar with the district, in that they asked her several times, a resident and a business owner of the community, if they were familiar with Daniel Boone School District. So my question is, and she did not know who contacted her. She was livid. She said, I'll never donate anything to Daniel Boone now. She was outraged, the business owner. So I just thought, number one, I'm wondering who's making those calls on our behalf, and if it is Market Street. And I don't mean to imply that it is if it isn't, but somebody is within the past 2 weeks and not doing us a very good service in the PR. And when she said no, she was pressed. Well, why not?
But Market Street, to my understanding, is not ask for donations. They sell naming rights and the like.
Yeah, that's not
they
their
sell
business.
advertising.
Okay. So someone else from Revenue Enhancement authorized to contact our
No.
businesses and ask for
There are
donations?
people who do this on their own and use different school districts' names. So
Yeah.
Oh, like a scam?
they're
Yeah,
scams.
well, I got in a call actually from somebody pushing a calendar. It's time for you to advertise in the Daniel Boone calendar. I'm thinking, that doesn't sound like, so I called them, and it was some company out of Michigan. So,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know
I
what.
feel better about that than it wasn't anybody.
No, nothing
But
that
they
we've...
did do some damage there with that one business.
But back to Market Street, do we need to terminate the contract? Can't we just work around them?
I don't even know if they're doing anything. The last time they were here was 6 months ago, a year ago. I can't remember now when the last time we had the gentleman here telling us what they were supposed to be doing. And we could call them back in and tell them we're not satisfied with the work that they've done to date and press them a little bit.
We'll have a letter sent to them.
I'd have them come to one of our meetings.
But I think there's a reason they haven't continued. I think there's a reason they haven't done anything.
Okay, well, I'd like to know what the reason is.
Yeah, is it a secret?
No, there's no, from what I can gather, it wasn't fully executed on our part.
The contract?
Somehow got an
No.
email that Dr. Otto said it was a letter from Dr. Otto that said that he reviewed it and never signed it.
Dr. Otto never signed it?
That's correct.
Yeah, but we approved it as a board. And I
But it
remember
was never
signing.
executed. According
Then
to
maybe
Mr.
we
Sears.
really need to talk to Market Street.
But I got an email on that this week.
Yeah, we did. We got some from Mr. Subers.
Well, then we need to give him a chance.
It said Dr. Otto said he reviewed it and never signed it.
I think you need to ask them to come in because
Okay.
their contract was simply, if they got any revenue, they got a percentage,
That's
but we
correct.
got the bulk of it. So we paid them nothing unless they did something.
That's correct.
Yeah, I think we need to talk to them.
Well, do you want them at a committee level, don't you? You wouldn't want them at a full board.
Yeah, it doesn't have to go to the board.
Yeah, they can come to revenue enhancement.
Okay.
I mean, they were at REC before. They came to a board meeting, and they were telling us all the things that they had already started working on. And so we were all under the premise that they had the contract was moving along. I was shocked that they wouldn't call us and tell us, hey, you guys still haven't signed. That just blows my mind.
That's what I learned.
It's a shame.
Mr. Doty?
I was looking for the percentage, and I was looking through that email. I'm looking for the percentage, and
From memory, I thought it was 30% to them, 70 to us.
Yeah,
that's what I thought as well. In fact, here it is. Yeah, they get 30%. Now, she said making this advertising worth about $3,200. That's coming from Mrs. Twardowski. I'm not sure where. Does that mean they have done something and that they've...
She thought they hadn't done anything from what the conversation with me. She didn't think that there hasn't been one initiative moved this past year.
I guess, as a committee, we were discussing moving on. And if we didn't give them the opportunity to do their job, I'm a little embarrassed by that.
I know a lot of work went into it. I believe I might be the only continuing member of the Revenue Management Committee from the previous board. A lot of work went into vetting Market Street. There's another. I think they should come and present for the committee. That's my view.
Yeah.
But very simply, if something wasn't executed, then we need to execute it and let them do their thing.
Yeah, if the board approved it and it was an administrative issue, those administrative issues should be corrected, I guess, unless the board undoes the vote.
I could sign it.
Yeah.
I would call them, I would sign it, and I'd get them to work. I can't even believe we spent all that time on this, and it's just been, I just can't even believe it.
Yeah, pick up the phone call.
Thank you to the committee, I guess, and I think I should say that because I'm on the committee, but for bringing this to the attention of the board. That's
Yeah, I mean...
Whoever found the information, was it 6 months? You, Dr. Sager?
No, Tamara.
But it was sent out to us, so.
Yes.
Mr. Doty, anything else?
Yes. Mrs. Torsia outlined, this kind of goes back to River Rock and getting some additional revenue from APC and its use there. Apparently this has been tried and it's actually currently in place. Am I correct on that, Mrs. Torsia? This is currently in place, this elementary program in another district?
Yeah.
And with the closing of the BCIU program, there would be a number of elementary students that would be welcomed into this program, and we have an opportunity to generate revenue out of that partnership. So, I mean, I was really excited to hear about that as a potential revenue gain for us. So, I think we should be looking into that. I think there's more to come on that. It's not necessarily anything we as a board need to take action on.
Jody, I'm passing up to your
work tomorrow with Shelley Mikowski, and we're meeting with them, and we're going to take a tour.
Excellent.
But I have a question about that.
Sure.
You're saying there'd be no board action required?
Not right now.
No, but let's say that was feasible and agreeable. Would that just fit right in with the same slots they're providing us? There'd be no additional revenue?
Correct. There would potentially be additional revenue, and that's the piece that I need to go visit and work out. But the space would not be, there would not be any additional space necessary.
Would there be an adjustment required to the lease?
No. Other than,
This
no,
is a separate agreement.
This is separate. This
That's what I'm asking.
Right. This would actually be the potential for our school to bring revenue in for the seats that would be offered out to other school districts for this program.
Okay.
I think I'd like to reserve some of that, the nitty-gritty discussion for executive session, since it's going to kind of fall under negotiation. That's all right?
Yeah.
That's all.
Really?
Is it done yet? Good?
No, we talked about exactly what Brian was talking about. I just thought he was closing out before some of the.
That's all I have.
That's fine. Now, you covered everything. You did a good job.
Any other board comments or questions? Public comments or questions about the revenue enhancement report? Seeing none, we'll move on to finance. Are there any comments or questions regarding the finance agenda?
I'll just make a comment on D that this past week I had not had the opportunity to reach out to Irvine and Company again. I did call them several times prior to that, but have not resolved that issue.
You want to give a budget workshop report?
I guess it was a public meeting. I'm not sure why I'm reporting to the board at this point. We were all there. I think it'd just be a waste of time.
Okay. And the next meeting is still set for March 25th?
That's correct.
Any public comment on the finance items? We'll move on. Personnel will be part of the special voting agenda, which will immediately follow here, so we'll move on to programs. Comments or questions on the enrollment or student data or the French and Spanish classes going to France and Spain? I have a question.
Yes.
It's funded by students.
Correct.
Who accompanies them?
It's usually the French and Spanish teachers.
Who pays for that?
They do. They do.
They pay their own costs? Really?
Well, there's an arrangement with the touring company. I'm sure for the number of students that they go, there's a reduced rates for the tour group leaders and co-leaders. Yeah, that's typically how it goes.
If you're a tour group leader, they give you your whole tour, right?
Okay.
I tried it. I didn't want to. Not for me.
I've taken students over.
I had a question about the enrollment report. I noticed that since September, we started with 3641 students, and now our total is 3615 for net, 26 students that were down negative, and that our alternate placements are only up 4. I was just wondering, what is the general thinking of where are they going?
I'm getting regular reports that students are moving out of our district and not into alternative or into cyber school, that parents are suddenly moving. Thank you.
Any public comment on programs? Saying none, but their policy, the next policy committee meeting will be on March 24th.
What are we doing? I believe there was discussion about changing the board meeting time to accompany the public hearing.
Yes.
The board meeting starts at 6 o'clock, public hearing at 7:30.
Okay, well, the policy committee time is going to have to be changed then. We might reschedule if that's if the committee's over that, but it will not be at 6 o'clock because we have a hearing. 5:30 because we need more than a 30-minute meeting. So that would be changed to something.
Comments or questions? Public comment on the policy committee meeting. Transportation, there's no report. Item 14, old business. BEC boiler discussion and elementary school realignment.
Well, I guess I'll speak. Clearly, we would need to buy at least one boiler. I think that issue's been resolved on its own accord. You can't have a building without heat, whether you have students in it or not. And I can't imagine we're going to propose renting a boiler indefinitely. So I think we need to at least install and instruct the administration to go ahead and install at least one boiler.
This temporary boiler obviously can get us through the season.
Well, I guess we need to decide whether we want it, if that season extends into April or not.
I mean, I would think that's probably the case.
So do we want to spend that money on renting a boiler or installing a boiler?
Well, the question is, are we going to have, so I think we have several different options, whether it's one or two or none.
Yeah, we didn't have time to get the price on one yet. Before it was.
And it takes 6 weeks to get one in.
Yeah, I mean, so basically I think we're going to need, until we get those boilers in, if we decide to buy them, until we actually get them here and installed, that rental boiler is going to be here for 2 months. Whether either way, if we say tonight, go out and do it, I don't think it's going to get ordered, installed in time to negate April anyway. So I think having a discussion on this for an hour is moot tonight without having everything in front of us.
Well,
I do have the estimate on the boilers, and
on a single,
yes.
Okay.
But I don't, let me just look at my email.
Okay.
But I do have that.
Mrs. Torch, I don't know that we need it just yet. Let me, because I wrote out something about school realignment that ties in with boilers. Because I've been asked by a board member why I feel the issues of purchasing boilers for BEC and the realignment are intertwined. And the inquiry went on to state a belief that realignment could not take place until a decision on closing a facility took place.
Right.
I don't believe that's correct. I believe we could realign without a decision on closing a facility. But let me preface my comments by reminding everybody this is the Daniel Boone Area School District. It's not the Amity, Birdsboro, Monocacy, or Union School District. And my belief is that decisions need to be made on that basis, not the provincialism that's been dominating this conversation. Realignment as presented at the budget workshop by the administration is not contingent on closing a facility. It should be decided based on our responsibility to provide good education balanced with the need to be effective stewards of financial resources, that is, school property taxes. The concept presented by the administration at the budget workshop was to create a primary school housing grades K to 2 and an intermediate school housing grades 3 to 5. That was the plan. The fact that we have adequate space in 2 existing school buildings suggests that we possibly have too many buildings. There's still space in the high school resulting from construction of the middle school. There obviously is space in the middle school since we were told 5th grade could possibly be accommodated there. And we have an entire building known as the APC unused by our students. What we decide to do with all of our vacant space need not and should not be a consideration of realignment. What realignment will do for the education we provide as well as for our financial resources should be paramount. There's a website, www.paschoolperformance.org, that evaluates every individual school in the Commonwealth based on test scores and displays an academic performance score for each. The most recent school score for each of our schools as of December 9th, 2013, very current, are the middle school was 89.9, the high school was 88.6, the AEC was 81.3, the MEC was 78.1, and the BEC was 64.3, nearly 20% lower than the rest of the elementary schools. Realignment offers the opportunity to eliminate this disparity by having all students, regardless of neighborhood, receive the same instruction as their peers and thus have the same potential to achieve. Additionally, in a school district such as ours that's nearly $90 million in debt with an annual debt service bill of $7 million due each year for the next 20 years, assuming we do not borrow one more dollar, realignment affords us an annual saving of more than $600,000. And I'd ask any board member who would vote against realignment what alternative plan they can offer that provides the possibility of improving our elementary school education and at the same time reduces costs by nearly $700,000 annually. Realignment also impacts the need to immediately spend over $400,000 to purchase and install new boilers and new doors at the BEC, nearly depleting our capital reserve fund. Until the use of that facility is determined, the following questions arise, and realignment affords us the time to find out, rather than rushing to spend a considerable amount of money. Those questions are, in an unoccupied building, do we need to purchase 2 boilers? Whether 1 or 2 are needed, do they have to be new or would reconditioned suffice? Is the price quoted really the best? 2 residents of our community have contacted board members stating their company possibly could afford a better price, provide a better price. And additionally, I was contacted this morning by Senator Judy Schwenk regarding setting up a meeting with the Department of Community and Economic Development to determine the availability of grant money. Until those questions are answered, I don't think we can determine whether we have to buy boilers or not. So, any other comments or questions? No, not public comment yet. We're waiting for the board. Nothing?
I think that, like Mr. Ratgeb said at this point, you're not going to get the new boilers installed until the summer anyway when we're not paying to use them. So I would agree that we should wait until later.
If I was in a minute, not 10.
Pardon?
No.
If there's no other board comment, public comment. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Julia Olison, 637 Jefferson Street, Birdsboro. My understanding is that you don't know how big the boiler that you brought in, the package boiler, there's number 1. Is that correct?
We don't. Kenny Smith does.
Okay. The ones that you had were 3 million BTU boilers each. That's how big they were. If the one that you brought in was 5 million BTUs or larger, you had 60 days of temporary operation before you need a permit from the state to operate it. If it's smaller, you can leave it in there as long as you want, but you don't have until the summer if it's larger.
Okay, larger than, say the number again, please.
5 million BTUs. The ones you have are, I believe, 3.046 million BTUs.
You seem to convey a fair amount of expertise and background. What is your expertise and background?
I work for the Department of Environmental Protection. That's the permit that you would need, is an air quality permit.
Okay.
So are you saying the one we rented is 5 million?
I'm saying if it is 5 million or greater.
I don't think it is, because I think the way the boiler system works now is that they run, one will run at full capacity, and then the other one, then they alternate.
I believe I heard that the package boiler is covering the whole building.
I don't think they're running both at the same time.
I believe I heard that the package boiler is covering the whole building. It wouldn't have to be the same size.
But we don't know what size it is.
Correct.
So you're saying if it is over 5 million,
you'd have until March. I'm sorry, you'd have until May 6th.
Which is fine.
To make a decision. But it would have to be out of the building.
Okay,
you wouldn't be able to leave it there.
We wouldn't continue renting it if we're going to need.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Hi, I'm Amy Hall, 328 Report. Mr. Martina, from what you just read, your list of questions, please add to your list. Class size. You did not add class size. I need you to look into that, because if you're going to shove children into one building and shove children into another building, there's no room for growing. Also,
if you look at your Daniel Boone suggested guidelines, number 117 in the guidelines, the suggested class size is 18 to 25. You're looking at 34 kids approximately right now in a classroom. If you've ever been in a first or second grade classroom with 34 kids, you want to turn around and walk right back out. Kids aren't learning, teachers are losing their minds, you're not getting A's because you're not hiring them. Also, I need you to remember what Mr. Durso said last meeting. He said you will not get an occupancy notice for BEC if you don't put your boilers in. Put the boilers in, spend the money, leave it alone. Don't realign 3 years ago. If you had left it the way it was, I'll bet you anything that 80, 70, and 60 probably would have been a lot higher. So just think, okay? You've got until the 24th. Thanks.
Thank you. For the public edification, the plan Mrs. Torsia presented had no class size higher than 25, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct. I stayed within our district policy guidelines for all classes. The highest number of students sitting in class would be 5th grade, which I took to our maximum suggested enrollment, which was 25, 26 students.
And even that, you said you had another classroom if need be.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment?
I'm still Julia Olafson at 637 Jefferson Street. The thing that's bothering me right now is that a projection about what's going to happen over the next 5 years, it's just a guess. It's an educated guess, but it's still just a guess. Your enrollment projections predict losing, I believe, 2.2 to 3.2% in enrollment each year over the next 5 years. Would we have projected that after the housing crash that we would not be larger than we were 5 years ago? I mean, it seems that you're making decisions based on you're making realignment decisions based on a potential student body we might have 3 years from now. It's not really optimal for our students right now. And I really I just feel that I just really believe it's short-sighted and premature to make these decisions right now, considering that those class sizes in those two buildings will be at the top level as what we consider acceptable according to our guidelines. If you even had 1% increase in any of the grades, or 1.5% increase in any of the grades instead of a reduction of 2%, you could be over your guidelines. And those are our kids. Some of them might be your kids, I don't know, but they're my kids. They're some of these people's kids. I think that they want it to be optimal for their kids, not just what's acceptable.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I am Sharon Morris of 124 Bird Street. My question is, with the boilers, okay, it's a temporary fix, but can we honestly focus on getting a superintendent in here? Dr. Schenker, your time is up in May, am I correct?
June, but okay. I'll go in May if you guys want me to.
We had time to try and find somebody before Dr. Otto left, and now look at us. Our kids are struggling. I have a child in Birdsboro. I have a child in middle school. I have a 3-year-old and I have an 18-month-old. My 3-year-old goes into Birdsboro. She knows where the office is. She knows where the gym is. She knows where the cafeteria is. It's like another little home to her. It's kind of cool. And then I hear news that, this school's going to get shut down. I went to that school. My children went to that school. I want my girls to go to that school. It's a great staff. It's a great community at that school. So I think that we need to turn our focus onto the board. Get a superintendent in here. We need, I believe there's a business manager position open now too.
Oh, we've interviewed for the business manager position, and that should be finalized within the next 2 weeks. We met with the company today that is the search company for the superintendent position,
And if everything goes according to the information that Dr. Sanker read earlier in the meeting, we should have a superintendent on board by the end of April.
Okay, because that's a priority.
Well,
I think that we need to make that a priority before going to
appointed, but
closing
I don't
any
know if
school.
they'll start. We'll have a superintendent, not sure when they'll start.
Okay.
We should have one selected by then.
Well, people are moving out of the district, and honestly, you see in the news, you hear in the paper about, oh, well, look at what Daniel Boone School Board did, and they're going to go and announce. And then who's going to want to be hired by us? They're going to come in and go, whoa, hot mess, I'm leaving. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to procedure for public participation discussion. And I only bring this up, as was stated earlier, 6 of us went to training for 2 days in Mechanicsburg on March 1st and 2nd. Everyone sitting up here that's on the board other than Mr. Basil and Mr. Kurtz were in attendance, along with Dr. Sanker. And we were informed that we're doing our public participation wrong, that it's not supposed to be an interactive process, that the public is allowed to comment on the issues, but it should not be back and forth with questions. I just want to know the board's feeling on that.
What happens if we get in trouble?
Pardon?
What happens if we get in trouble?
What do you mean get in trouble?
Somebody from Department of Education comes down and slap our wrist.
It's a completely, every board can do whatever they want.
I am very welcoming and grateful for any public participating, whether it's positive or negative. I think that's great for our board to be able to have that interaction.
And that's what I want to hear, how each board member feels.
I agree with your speed. However, I just caution Mr. Martino if we get for a long-winded discussion with somebody that you have to politely ask them to
take the questions.
We, our meetings are going way too late, and we make sure that on the issue of time, we want to hear the comments and when they participate. But if someone's up there for 10 minutes, I don't think that's anything.
I agree with what Mr. Radcliffe is saying. Perhaps a good compromise would be to take the questions and then answer them after all the questions have been asked. Then you avoid that dialogue issue that takes up time and really not for public comment. Be able to still provide questions.
What our policy states is that the member of the public comes to the podium, states their name and address, makes their comment or asks their questions, and then is asked to sit down. And at that point, once they sit down, if we answer the questions, it forestalls this back and forth dialogue.
Well, the only problem I see there is if our answer does generate another question from them, then how do you handle it?
But that leads to the 10 minutes you're talking about. And I think the place for that, if somebody really wants to have a dialogue, is the committee meetings.
And also getting information from our administration, which I'm sure is more than welcome to help give answers.
I think, the way we typically did it, the last few years, it's not a difficult position to sit in the board presidency, I can tell you, because you want to give the public their 3 minutes to address the board. And sometimes they have a simple question that can generate a simple response. But what we used to do when I was here, Ms. Penza would sit next to me, and she would time the 3 minutes. And she would quietly whisper in my ear 3 minutes when somebody was talking. I try to let them finish their thought and wrap it up at that point in time. If I felt that the question was something that we would get repeatedly from 100 different people, I would let it go. And I'd watch the board members. If you saw board members doing like this, it was time to cut the conversation off and move on. I would leave it to the discretion of the board president to try to do his best to manage that 3-minute rule and move things along. It's a fine line. You obviously, if you guys are in the audience over the last couple of years, when you're trying to cut somebody off in mid-thought, it just gets them angry and generates even more unrest. And particularly, I think in 2 weeks we're going to have a much fuller audience. When that was the case, a lot of times we'd say, hey, look, we're going to allow everybody 3 minutes, but we're going to cut it off at 11:30. And so there's a hard stop to the meeting. You can't just go all night with public comment, and you announce that at the beginning of the meeting. You say, look, we're going to do our best to get through the agenda quickly so we can take public comment, but there will be a hard stop at this time, period. And so everybody's aware of that up front. That's just my thought on it.
That's what I wanted to hear.
When I first got on the board, there was no public comment. It was meeting adjourned, second, and that was it. It seemed that when we started allowing people their 3 minutes, people were happy with that. They could voice their concerns. We actually received some good feedback from the public, and this is their only opportunity to engage us on issues, really.
No, for the last couple of years, I stood up at practically every meeting and had my say. I just wanted to know what the other board members felt. So.
When we are saying also with caution that we are not, we don't speak for the board individually, but we only speak as a board. So I think some of the answers that people are looking for, we have to either discuss them, or if they have been already brought up and we have arrived at an answer together, then you can, as board president, can answer them and say, well, this has been discussed, which you have in the past, and therefore you're answering them for the whole board.
What I heard in the training that we only speak as a board when we are collectively sitting as a board. So sitting here tonight as a board, when you speak, you are speaking.
But what I'm saying is some of the answers that I think we should have public comment. I have no question about that. I'm just saying that sometimes the answers that they're looking for, if they haven't been discussed by the board together, we can't answer them. And if they have been discussed in the past, you as board president can answer them.
I think what I would try to do, or at least what my attempt was when somebody asked a question like that, I would try to represent the different points of view that the board currently had on the issue, and just say we haven't made a decision. And that's where we leave it.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes individual board members should not be answering. That's my point. Anyone like a question?
Also under new business, and actually, Mr. Basil, I have a question for you as board secretary.
Sure.
And I don't know if you saw this today. We received an email from a member of the public.
I did not see that today.
Asking that the letter be entered into correspondence and read at the school board meeting because they're unable to attend. However, the email is about the BEC. So I think if it were to be read...
Is that the Mascaro letter?
No. No, this is a letter from a member of the public asking that it be entered in. So but what I'm saying is, since it involves the BEC, I think if anything, if we're going to read it, it should be read at the 24th about the BEC.
Yeah, it can be read now or it can be read then. But it has to be read.
I believe that there's an area on the agenda at the voting meeting for secretaries' correspondence.
That's correct.
My thinking would be that that's the natural home for something.
So we'll save it for the 24th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you like to pass it down?
No, I believe he got it. It went to all the board members.
Yeah, we just want to make sure it ends up in the file.
You don't know which one. You might have gone to...
I'll check it.
Yeah. If you didn't get it, I'll forward it to you.
I didn't get it.
I'm sure I got it.
Yeah, you're on that.
Any presentations by the public on any other issues?
I'm sure I didn't see that.
You're not going to run.
I want to get out early.
Thank you.
Laura Marino, 367 Buckhead. This is very minor in the scheme of everything that's going on. However, when you're talking about moving the administration offices, a decision needs to be made. And you need to make it quickly, because you still have to decide on what you're going to do with BEC. You don't vote till June 24th. You still have to decide about this realignment proposal that you have going. Either one of those being a yes, Ken Smith is good, but that would require moving pretty much every elementary school in some way, shape, or form over the summer, 12 weeks, along with moving the administration to the high school over the summer, along with all the general maintenance that has to happen over the summer. There will be an additional expense that I don't know if anybody has really taken into account of hiring if you end up closing BEC and moving that entire building, or if you realign
and you have to shuffle half of AEC to Monocacy and Monocacy to AEC along with everything else. Is that all included, Mrs. Sorkin?
No, but I have that.
That's a lot of manpower to move, what, 3/5 of our district? So I would just urge you, make some decisions and make them quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comment, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So made.
Meeting adjourned. We'll go right into the voting agenda. Do we need another roll call?
No.
No. Okay. Are there any agenda edits to the voting agenda?
Who called the motion to adjourn the meeting?
I made it.
Okay.
And then come second.
Seeing no agenda edits, the procedures for public participation are the same. Is there any public comment on the voting agenda items?
We're trying to find
It's the little ones.
Seeing none, we'll hold time for Mr. Doty if he finds it.
It's the last sheet. It's the last thing.
I got it.
Okay.
Personnel approvals. Are there any comments or questions on the personnel approvals?
I have a question, Dr. Sanker.
Yes.
So, maybe it's just because I'm new to the board, but all these volunteers that we're approving for building clearances and school clearances, shouldn't we know what are they doing? What buildings are they cleared for? Are they helping teachers?
Are you on page 3, number 2?
Yes. 3, number 2, building clearances, school clearances, and then...
Well, it says if they're supervised or unsupervised, whether it's a building clearance or a full clearance in all 4 buildings.
I'm just saying, what's the, whatever, statement of need? I think the policies say that we should be getting rationale statements. I just want to know, what are they doing in our building?
Most of them are getting approved to go on field trips. So in order for them to go and to be a chaperone on a field trip, I'm making sure that they have a unsupervised clearance level, because if they're taking a child to the laboratory while they're out, or that they would have any opportunity to be alone with the children. That's why you're seeing most of these volunteers coming up. The other ones are people that are coming into the building to assist in classrooms.
Could we get that information on this report? And is anyone else interested in it besides me? Like what building was 2A1 cleared for? And
we could try.
I personally don't have any desire, as long as all the procedures are being followed and everything's being checked out fine. I don't really have a personal interest in knowing, but in the sake of transparency, yeah, it's true. You don't want too much information either. But it would be helpful to know if this is for a field trip, if this is for helping out. That would be helpful to know.
You have to understand when they have a clearance to be unsupervised, they can do anything. It's not just specific to a field trip.
Yeah, I thought that was my understanding. Once they're approved, they can be approved and do
that's
multiple things within the
board requested.
So it may just be starting off for a field trip thing, but 2 months later they could be doing something else.
They could be helping a kid learn to read.
But let me ask, because like a building clearance, Mrs. if you knew that it was for the middle school, what does that do for you?
maybe I know the person, and I'm just wondering what age children he's around or something. Just wondering what's the necessity of all these people to be around our students.
Actually, if it's a building clearance, they can be in any building. As long as they're supervised.
So just
they're
give me an
supervised
example.
and unsupervised.
Just give me an example. What is a supervised building clearance volunteer doing?
Reading. Oh, go ahead.
A volunteer in
supervised, yeah.
They will be helping a classroom teacher, maybe hanging a bulletin board. They might be working out in the hallway, providing some support to reading, having a student reading a story to you. That's why there's so many that are constantly coming in our buildings. We're supplementing through parent volunteers instead of what we used to utilize as aides.
It's all a good thing, right?
It's all a very good thing. And we do have a lot of field trips coming up. And last year there was a mad rush and people weren't
getting their clearances in on time, and I would not approve them. So you'll see them little by little because they're working ahead of schedule. Fifth grade picnic will be coming up in June. Any of the volunteers that are working there have to have their clearances. We had, what else do we have coming up? There's different activities at the elementary level, Day for Dinosaurs, things like that, to where we're having more PTC members possibly coming in.
I guess that would be a neat way for us to know what's going on in the buildings too. Keep us tuned in. But now, one other question: the extracurricular coach for volunteer baseball. We already approved 5 coaches. I just wondered if this is 6 for baseball, high school baseball, or. Because I know some of them are.
I don't know what level. I do know that there's an enormous amount of students at the high school level, and that because of
So we have a good turnout for baseball. We have a better turnout.
We are having a good
turnout. There were 40 kids that turned out, and all did not make it. And I know quite a few were cut from the game. Actually, there's 2.
And I'm assuming that the coaches are for the JV and the varsity team, so you always have at least 2.
Turnout.
So that's a good thing too.
That's a very
they have that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, very minor. The 5th grade picnic, is that for A, C, and B students?
That is for all of them, and I arranged transportation with New Roads and Pine. They graciously have, I begged them a few years ago if they would provide free transportation for Birdsboro and Monocacy to be able to come over to the middle school area, and they are very happy to transport our students each year for the picnic.
I ask that because I think it's a great opportunity to bring the schools together because they are going to be seeing higher numbers of 6th grade. A very beneficial event. I'm just glad that's continuing.
And the resident recognition still takes place, so we do have additional volunteers coming in to help with that. So PTC is very vigilant in making sure that they have the people that are approved to be able to participate.
Thank you.
Thank you, PTC.
Okay?
You may want to stay there because I have a couple of questions that I don't know who needs to answer them. Before I retired 10 years ago, I was very involved with managing the Family Medical Leave Act. So things may have changed in the last 10 years, but I went online and I read it, and I don't see too many changes. It's still 12 weeks and a 12-month period, is that correct?
Excuse me?
It's still 12 weeks of...
I have, Mr. Martinez.
Pardon me?
I think the same question that I had.
I don't know how to answer it because I've inherited this part of personnel for the professional staff that are going out on maternity leaves, and then once their maternity leave is over, then it's considered FMLA because they're staying at home and they're no longer under doctor's care. But according to the contract, they are entitled to FMLA to be able to stay home for child rearing, opposed to recovery from...
Well, I guess that was my first question, and forget the names on here because I don't want to discuss the names, but so you're the one managing it?
Excuse me, yeah, I'm the one that's trying to manage it, yeah.
My understanding of family medical leave is somebody gets a medical documentation and it has to be documented.
Correct.
And that entitles them to 12 weeks of unpaid leave within a 12-month period.
Yes.
Not 12 weeks plus an unlimited leave of absence.
Without having the DBA bargaining agreement here to be able to reference what they are entitled, what they're asking for.
I believe it was an additional year of unpaid.
Right.
Is what they were entitled
But I
to.
believe off of the back end of the birth of the child, if they choose to extend it, they use the FMLA. I have no problem using the correct
That's all I was going to say. Is I think whoever is managing it needs to read up on it, and because it leads to another question.
FMLA is a legal term, and affords them certain benefits that making sure. So yeah, I agree with Mr. Martino. That was my question as well.
It offers them certain controlled benefits.
Correct.
It's not just unlimited time off. There was a discussion a while back, I wasn't on the board yet, about how we get our substitute teachers. Was that ever finalized?
How we get them?
Well, there was...
I think the issue that we had was that long-term subs were being called in whether we needed them or not. And so my understanding is that practice ended a couple of years ago to significant savings in the district. Now, where we get our long-term sub from as needed, I can't speak to that other than the administration's.
But do these extended leaves of absence cost us money, I guess is my question.
When someone goes out on maternity leave and chooses to stay out for the rest of the year, well, I guess we have a bit of a savings. I think Mark might be the best person to be able to answer that.
Yeah, the position that is on leave is unpaid leave. So that's savings. You're saving the PSERs, you're not really saving the FICA, but that long-term sub that comes in is usually at a lower rate than the tenured teacher is.
But the question that maybe Mr. Martinez is going down the same track I had over the weekend thinking about it was, are we still picking up their full medical costs?
You do under FMLA.
But, yeah, under FMLA, but what about the unpaid leave?
Well, the
FMLA would be unpaid.
It is unpaid leave.
See, that's where we have the...
Well, the leave of absence for the child rearing isn't usually, it could be unpaid, but it might not be unpaid depending on how much sick and
it needs to be looked at.
Correct. They have been able to exhaust sick time. So if they go and take a child rearing leave, we want to just stick with child rearing leave, and they go out in April, they can utilize all of their sick time until the last day of school and then return back in September, August, whenever we start school.
They can take off 6 weeks under child rearing leave because it's classified as the person being actually recovering from childbirth, so that they can use paid leave for.
Right, so then we have 12 weeks of FMLA, which is 18 weeks now. And then according to the contract, they have an additional year of unpaid leave that they can tap into.
Yes.
There is adjustments we do make to their medical and their contributions. So if they're out for an extended period of time beyond their FMLA.
And if that's the case, they have to pay their medical. Once they begin...
The full cost?
Yeah,
the whole
go on
cost.
Cobra then.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is I think we need to look at it.
That's fine.
And right now, I know Mark, the business office, and Mary Beth have been looking at it. I had one that came across my desk, and I consulted with Mark and Kim on it. So, I mean, there's a full conversation going on with child rearing leaves and FMLA leaves.
A designated HR department would take care of this.
Let me give you, Mrs. Torsia, before you leave, there's, again, without the names, but down here it talks about a first FMLA extension and a second FMLA extension. There are no extensions. It's 12 weeks in 12 months, so I don't know what all these extensions are.
They're child rearing, and we're using the wrong terminology. It should have been, extension of child rearing leave, because those are what the extensions are.
Okay. One more question. Item B1C is asking us to approve something that already took place again.
Which one?
B1C.
And this seems to come up every meeting where we talk about we want to be approving stuff in advance. There's no sense us approving something after it happened.
What happened here?
That's something you were looking into the contract.
Oh, that was me. I had to get some answers. And until I got those answers, it was, she took the days off, and then I had to come back and classify them.
Okay. That's all I had. Any other comments or questions?
The only comment I had was, I know we're approving tonight Mr. Boyer's resignation, but I wanted to officially, a very short period of time that I was here, that was very prompt with all your answers, dedicated, and I'm hoping that the more money and a shorter drive, you won't like it there and want to come back. But, thank you very much.
Since we're making you blush, let me add that I didn't really know you prior to December. In the 3 months I've been on the board, you will be missed. There's no doubt about that. Thank you.
I will. I've already told you how I feel about you leaving. Obviously, I don't want to see you go, but I do wish you well. And don't be surprised if we maybe knock on your door in a short period of time. A couple of years, who knows?
Yeah, because we have an assistant business manager position open.
We'll see. No, but you will be missed, Mark, and I wish you well in your endeavors.
Thank you for helping us out.
This is a voting agenda. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Make a motion for 7A through D.
7A through D. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Basil, second by Mr. Doty.
Any comments?
Comments, questions? Hearing none, Mr. Basil?
Ms. Spites?
Yes.
Mr. Doty?
Yes.
Mrs. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Radigan?
Yes.
Mr. Speed?
Yes.
Mr. Podolsky? Sorry. Mr. Basil? Yes. Mr. Martino?
Yes.
Motion passed. 8-0.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Meeting adjourned.
Wow. You have the first time. 9:40.
I'd say
Way to
what?
go.
Training we got.
I'd say
Way to
what?
go. I'm impressed.
It actually went longer than
Yeah.
it seemed like it was going to go a lot longer.